Hello, everyone, and give me just 1 minute so that I can pull out. So we're doing Q&As today for progesterone, and I'm doing it alone today, so it's gonna be a little tricky. So just bear with me, but we'll get through all the questions. I know we received a lot of questions from you guys, so we'll get to that as well. Okay. Cool. And then let me make sure I fire off Instagram as well. Perfect. Okay, so it looks like we are ready to go. I'm just gonna wait maybe for a couple of minutes to then we can gather more people and then start talking about progesterone. So this whole month we're talking about progesterone because it feels like it's such a huge hormone when it comes to women's health, especially in perimenopause, and one of the very first hormones that starts dropping for most women as we enter perimenopause. So let's talk about this today. What we're going to cover today is what are the symptoms of low progesterone? Why does it matter in perimenopause? And then we're going to talk about progesterone in estrogen dominance and when you're experiencing perimenopause. And then most importantly, which I know most of you want to know, what are some of the botanicals, vitamins, and minerals that you can raise progesterone naturally? But we're also going to talk about bioidentical progesterone and what you can do to make sure you're getting a really good one. And then let's talk about places to apply progesterone. So when you're in perimenopause or when you're still menstruating or you're postmenopausal. And then we'll do some open Q&As. And I know you guys, many of you have submitted questions, so I am going to dive into those as well. Hello from Germany. So just introduce yourself. Tell me where are you from? Where are you dialing in from? Dialing in. I'm just like so old school. Like, where are you clicking in from? I don't know. I'm in Mexico. And so for those of you who don't know, I spend 6 months out of a year in warm weather. I'm not a big fan of, I love winters, but I don't love Colorado winters for 6-7 months a year, you know? So I have a beautiful house in Colorado in Boulder area. But I also have a camper van and I'm in Mexico right now. And I'm going to be here until it gets warmer in Colorado. So in case you wonder, this is inside my van, and those are my two best friends. There's Charlie and there is Nella, and they are the best travel companions one can ever imagine. All right, so let's post your questions, and then I will circle in on those questions, and otherwise I'm just gonna dive into, I think, the first biggest thing, which is for a lot of women, this is really first time to hear this and without realizing what are some of the symptoms of low progesterone and why is that happening, right? So progesterone is in our reproductive years, like when we're still cycling and when you're younger and you want to have kids, progesterone is the hormone that is giving you, is, as the name implies, progestation. So it's there for helping you for reproduction. So a lot of women who are having a lot of miscarriages cannot carry the pregnancy until term. Is oftentimes, not, of course, not always, but oftentimes low progesterone is the cause. Postpartum is oftentimes also a cause for progesterone. But then after that, it's like after age already 35, 45, it really starts declining pretty quickly. And you know it from the symptoms. So what are the symptoms? The first one that starts happening for most women is that your cycle are going to get shorter. So from the regular, say if your regular cycle is 28 days, you suddenly might feel like you're down to maybe 21 days. It actually starts less than that, 28 days, it goes down to 26 and 25, 21, right? Why? Is because of the luteal phase. So luteal phase is from ovulation until your period. That second phase is typically progesterone dominant. And so when progesterone starts declining, that phase becomes a lot shorter. But with that comes also the fact that we don't sleep as well as we did before. And so how many of you here have experienced that kind of thing where you just like, I was always a great sleeper, I was a decent sleeper, and then when you enter perimenopause, it's like you just cannot. Most women experience like that kind of midnight insomnia. They wake up at between 1 and 2 a.m. and they just cannot go back to sleep, right? So if that is you, it's worthwhile checking out whether perimenopause or low progesterone levels is the cause. And we're going to be talking about some of the things you can try to raise your progesterone. There's different ways of doing it. Another symptom of low progesterone is suddenly an onset of anxiety and just feeling like a sense of restlessness and, making a heel out of a mole, so to speak, right? Feeling, yeah, so those are the big ones. And then, other things will start happening is when progesterone drops, even though estrogen also tends to drop in perimenopause, it does not drop as quickly as progesterone. And that's the reason why a lot of women who are going through into perimenopause are also experiencing symptoms of estrogen dominance. And I know it's a little like weird and it's not the best term, but it is just a term we've got to work with. But because people go like, wait, how can I be estrogen dominant when my estrogen is dropping, right? And that's a very plausible, logical question. Well, both of them are dropping, both progesterone and estrogen are dropping. It's just progesterone is dropping much faster. So now the difference between the estrogen and progesterone might be too great. And that's the reason why a lot of women start experiencing, for example, a lot of pain in their breasts, or their cysts that start developing, or they might suddenly see an onset or growth of a fibroid that was dormant for a while or wasn't there in the past. So also putting a lot of weight around your thighs and flab and just fat and flab around thighs and your buttocks, it's very classically estrogen dominant as well. It's where we distribute fat around the body can be significant, can be can be an indication of what kind of hormonal imbalance we are having. So for estrogen dominance is the pear-shaped girls. I'm definitely a pear when I do put on weight. If I'm estrogen dominant, is all going to be in my butt and my thighs. And for women who, not girls, but for women who put on weight around their abdomen, it tends to be more metabolically driven. So high blood sugar levels, sort of prediabetes, diabetes, high testosterone oftentimes go with that. So, so that's about progesterone symptoms. So like I mentioned, a lot of the sleep issues, but also estrogen dominance can suddenly become a lot more pronounced. And that's one of the big surprises as women enter perimenopause. And I'm wondering how many of you here have experienced that, where you enter perimenopause and you suddenly feeling like you're having like you're like a teenager in reverse kind of a thing. Like all the PMS is worse, bleeding is worse, is heavier, your mood tanks before, if you're still cycling, it tanks before you get your period, or you experience suddenly that tenderness in the breast, right? So I'm curious if you're experiencing that. We certainly hear that from a lot of women in perimenopause. And the reason why that happens is because the sudden drop of progesterone is going to be making you more estrogen dominant. And all the symptoms that I mentioned just now are estrogen dominance, are driven by estrogen dominance. So, so Sandra is saying breast tension comes normally from high estrogen, but and then I think she got cut off. Some of you did not feel good on progesterone, so let's address that as I come to that as well. Okay, so I will get to the questions. I will get to the questions as we go because they are inching onto the next part, which I want to talk about, which is like the more specific applications. Okay, so the big question now is what do you do, right? How do you fix that progesterone issue, the low progesterone issue? And so there's a couple of ways, and I want to give you options so that you are fully informed and empowered. And even though we manufacture, we have our own progesterone in our store, bioidentical progesterone, it's not for everyone, and so that's why I want to give you options, and so that you can choose. And not everybody wants to use hormones. So the first one, which oftentimes you can use herbs, let's start off with nutrition first. So you can do, and this would work if you're still cycling. It's going to work if you are at the beginning of your perimenopause. This is not going to work if you're like struggling massively with sleep, you're having, deep into perimenopause, or you're postmenopausal. This is not going to work, right? So, but if you're just starting out, and this can also be applied to women who are still cycling, even for younger girls, like in teenage years, like this, what I'm going to tell you, this totally works for that whole demographic. So the first one is vitamin C is a humongous help for production of progesterone. vitamin A, and vitamin E. Those are the three things to consider. You can also do something called seed cycling, which is, or seed rotation, I like to call it. Seed rotation means that in the luteal phase, you make it a point to do a tablespoon of sunflower seed and sesame seeds combined. So it's two tablespoons together, ground. And you can put them into a smoothie. You can pre-grind them and put them on salads, or just, I'll make in one of my cookbooks, Cooking for Hormone Balance, there is like truffles, how to make truffles with the different seeds. So you can incorporate them into like some fun things and have it every day as a snack, but actually it's medicine too. So those are just some of the nutritional support that you can do. And I can tell you that this works because when I was going through perimenopause at the beginning, COVID started back then. So this is 4 years ago. And I upped my vitamin C levels, and my luteal phase extended. It worked temporarily for about 6 months, and then it stopped working. So, which is very normal, right? Okay, so then, so that's the first thing you can do to support the body to naturally produce progesterone. Now, let's move on to the next one, which is botanicals. There is one botanical specifically called Vitex, also known as chaseberry. And chaseberry is actually, it's a shrub. It's an herb that has been used for centuries in very, very high doses. Just a little factoid here and a fun fact. In very high doses, actually makes women not have sexual desire. So believe it or not, the church used to give it to women while the men were out fighting wars, so that they were just not so horny, not cheat on their husbands, basically. And so, but with lower doses, you're talking about 100 to 200 milligrams a day, it actually becomes really helpful to help your body produce its own progesterone. This is only going to work if you have your uterus and your ovaries. This is not going to work for somebody who had a hysterectomy. So that's a wonderful herb. You can use it for 25 days out of a month. If you're still cycling, you want to regulate your cycle, then you just use it during the luteal phase from day 14 until you get your period. In Europe, it's a very well-established herb, so much so that there is actual clinical studies done on it, and even conventionally trained doctors use it. Not to mention that it's also covered by insurance. So that's Vitex, and we also carry Vitex in our store. Just in case you're not familiar with our brand, our store is wellena.com. It's if you're watching on Instagram, it's in a bio link. So that's so that's for herbs, and the herbal option is also a good option for someone who is really against taking hormones because of, let's say, history of cancers, and there is just a fear or and just reluctance to try that. And I honor and respect that, and so that could be super helpful. What I have found, however, is that Vitex might not work when you are like deep into perimenopause, when your ovaries are really shutting down, or have already shut down. It's a little too late at that point. So I think it's worthwhile trying. And it's also just to remember, like with any herb, things can work for one person, but not another. So for example, Vitex, even when I was still cycling, Vitex just was not my herb. It would make my ovaries literally throb. And a couple of times I ended up having mid-cycle spotting. So it's kind of like the opposite what it's supposed to give you. By the way, mid-cycle spotting is also one of the symptoms of low progesterone. It can be, right? So that's, it's like, it's a reminder, it's not an herb for everyone. But I also know a lot of women who would never want to live without, they cannot imagine living without Vitex, so it's so fascinating, right? Like how different we all are, and how we gotta respect that. So let's move on to the next option, and that is bioidentical progesterone. So many of you have been asking about the cream, and so this is the cream we carry in our store. Fort Pumps gives you 25 milligrams of progesterone. It's made from yams, and no, yam creams are not the same as USP progesterone. Let me explain that. So it's true that our progesterone is derived from yams, absolutely. There is 2 species of yams that can they contain something called diagenenin, and diagenenin can only be extracted, needs to be extracted from the yams in a process of oxidation. It has to be it's ground up first, it's dried up, ground up, and then it's being put into a process of hydrolysis, and then a couple of enzymes are being added in order to extract diagenenin, and that is what works on the receptor. Yam cream on its own, that cream, and there's no progesterone in it per se that's going to attach itself to the receptor in all the parts of your body and work. So, I looked at some yam creams on Amazon, and they had some pretty good reviews of women going like, oh, I'm sleeping better, whatever. And so the only way I can explain it is that it could be placebo. Most likely it is placebo, because placebo in itself is a very powerful concept. If you've read books like You Are the Placebo or Your Body's Keeping the Score, those things can a real great reminder of like how much our thought process can really impact and how we feel. So the cream is an option. I think a good starting point would be 25 milligrams, and you can go up to much higher than that. Many of you ask about my dosages of progesterone, and so I'm always reluctant to talk about it because it's so individualized. So I will share with you today, but please remember that my dose is going to be different from your dose, right? So we always recommend to start off with 25 milligrams, and then if that doesn't work for you, then go up higher, right? So you can go up to 75 or 100 milligrams a day of a cream, and that's what I'm using. I'm using 75 milligrams, so it's 12 pumps of our cream here. Now, what's the difference between a cream and a oral progesterone? Are they the same? And the answer is absolutely not. They're actually very, very different. And the reason why they're different is because they're metabolized differently. Oral progesterone is going to be broken down in the liver, and it turns into what's called GABA-pregnenolone, and it works on your GABA receptors in the brain. And that is where it's a neurotransmitter that is calming in nature. It is going to help you to fall asleep and stay asleep soundly. And so, does it give you all the other benefits of progesterone? No. And so, because 80% of it is going to work on the brain. And when I say benefits of all the other benefits of progesterone, I'm talking about connecting with the fact that progesterone has receptors. We have progesterone receptors all around our body. It's in our boobs, it's in our uterus, it's in the skin, it's in the brain, as you know. It's also in our bones. A lot of people think like, oh, I just take calcium when I have, to prevent osteoporosis. That's an incredibly myopic and just incomplete conversation about bone health, okay? It's not just calcium, folks. It's calcium needs magnesium, vitamin D3, K2, manganese, chromium, but it also needs progesterone and estrogen. This is the reason why men do not get osteoporosis. They don't have tanking estrogen levels and tanking progesterone levels. So estrogen and both progesterone are needed for bone health as well. Is it gonna help your bones to do oral progesterone? The answer is no, because majority of that is gonna work on the brain, and so it helps you with your sleep. Oral helps you with your sleep and anxiety, especially like nighttime anxiety, or if you take it during the day for daytime anxiety. So this is the reason why I'm a big proponent that if topical progesterone doesn't work on your sleep, which was the case for me at some point, then you can add on oral progesterone. However, keep the topical progesterone for all the other benefits we talked about: your uterus, your ovaries, even though they are shutting down, your bones, right, your breasts, and that's something that I'm a big proponent of doing all of that. So that, and then one other thing I want to mention before I dive into questions is that it's really important to rotate your spots. Did you guys see that reel that I did about how my progesterone and estrogen both tanked in spite of doing a full protocol of, using, as per usual, doing my estrogen cream, doing my progesterone cream, and doing my DHEA, right? All of that. And my hormones just tanked. If you haven't seen the reel, it's there. Why did my hormones tank? And I only realized that because I suddenly became really impatient and very moody. And actually, it almost destroyed a relationship with my best friend because he was also going through a hormonal crisis. So that's another side note on this here. When you're having when you decide one day that your husband is really terrible, or your partner or your wife or whatever is terrible, then just pause and ask yourself, is it my hormones, or is this like really the person is really that bad? Because it could be that you've come to a point in your life that you really want to move on, and you suddenly have the clarity that this person is not right for you, or you're not right for them. But it could also be your hormones. So just a little pause on this here. So I felt like something was really off for me because my level of aggravation with him was very pronounced. And I went and tested my hormones, and fair and square, it came back incredibly low. And so what happened then was I realized I did not apply my own advice, which I've been telling many of you here, is that you're going to rotate the spots on the body. By the way, when you're buying the progesterone from us, when you're getting out from our store, you are also getting a PDF, which has got everything you need to know about progesterone: where, when, how much, what are the best locations to apply, fast releasing, slow releasing spots. This simple version of that is that you're going to rotate them. So I was always lazy and putting it on my forearm here. Not a great idea. So now I'm rotating them. One day I put on my chest, another day I put on my back, and put it on behind my neck, behind my knees, on top of the feet, under the feet. If I want a slow releasing, I'll put it on the inner thighs, right? Or my breasts are a really wonderful place to put your progesterone in as well. Okay. So a little practical tips like that. Okay, so let me go over to the questions that I posted on Instagram, and then I'm going to take care of those that you guys have emailed us. Christine is asking, I just started your progesterone cream a few weeks ago. How long does it take for it to extend the luteal phase and stop the menstrual spotting? It should do it like within a week or so, or 2 weeks. You should feel it already. If it hasn't, then most likely it's just not enough. So try to going up. I'm assuming you started off with 25 milligrams. If that is not helping, then go up the dose to instead of doing just 4 pumps. So ours is like you do the 4 pumps. So this is 2 pumps, right? So that's 12.5 milligrams. So just do if you've been doing 25 milligrams with 4 pumps, then just go up to 6 and see how that works for you. Why would the progesterone cream that I use, which was in your brand, I put on my stomach just once and made me cry for 24 hours? Yeah, so those are some of the effects some women get from progesterone. And so a couple of things here to consider. When you are, first, I would, of course, love and appreciate if you guys could support us and purchase our progesterone. One of the few things to consider, and if you are set on something else, then a few things to consider. One, the first thing is making sure that it's micronized. It means that it is ground up to a molecule small enough that actually penetrates your skin and gets into the lymphatic system, into your bloodstream, and doesn't just stay on your skin like a pretty cream. Number 2 is that you want to make sure it's bioidentical, so it's derived either from soy or from yes. And if they are from soy, then make sure they are non-GMO soy. So that should be put on a label. And then number 3 is that it does not contain any like phthalates, perfumes, mineral oils in it, because that really can be very hurtful. So the question is, when you say progesterone cream, my first question from Butterfly is, was it a bioidentical hormone, or was it cream, or not? And the other thing is, some women feel like progesterone side effects of progesterone can happen when there's a yeast infection. That's something that I've been hearing that from a number of practitioners who are in clinical practice, who work with patients, that when they see a lot of candida issues, yeast infections, then progesterone might not work as well. I don't know what the connection is behind it, but yeast really does not belong in excess yeast does not belong to our body. So one of the things you could do is see whether you can work with a practitioner to reduce your candida count and see whether the progesterone works better. The other thing is you could also try on a lower dose. You know, especially for those of you who are more sensitive, like there are people, like I'm a high dose person. I need high doses of everything in order to feel it, right? And but there's other people who are the opposite, which is like every little tiny change in substance, you can feel it in your body. So instead of doing, for example, 4 pumps, start off with half a pump, not even 1 pump, half a pump, and build up to it and see how that helps you. There's other people who also mentioning here that I stopped my progesterone cream 3 months ago, and now I feel okay. Now I feel horrible. Okay, yeah. So don't stop. One of the other questions that I don't know whether it's gonna come out here, but we get this all the time is like, if I start progesterone, is my body's gonna stop producing its own progesterone because I'm taking this as a hormone? My answer is your body's already stopping to produce it. There is no, it's not going to go back. It's different with melatonin, but with progesterone, you're on a downhill already. So there is nothing you're shutting down. Your body's shutting down in itself already. And, I also want to say, not every woman needs progesterone. Like, if you're here and you're listening to this, you probably are displaying some of the symptoms, but I can't tell you how many colleagues and girlfriends I have who are my age, even older. I just spent time in one city in Mexico here with a girlfriend who's 55, and she's never had hot flashes. She is super healthy. She's as healthy as I am, right? And she's in the fitness industry, and she does not need a single hormone. And I'm like, I'm on 5. You guys, I'm on 5, and if I wasn't on 5 now as a 52-year-old woman, I'd be like searching for words, I'll be forgetting things, I'll be pissy, I wouldn't be sleeping. I would just be like, my muscle form was just gonna, I would put on a lot more weight, right? I mean, I would be a hot mess. My hair is not falling out. So I'm on thyroid medication, I'm on DHEA cream, estrogen cream, progesterone cream, and oral progesterone, right? And that's what makes me feel good. So just always remember that everyone is different. We all gonna need different things. And it's really important to work with somebody who skillfully knows how to navigate those, because some of your questions that are coming in is about that too. So Jamie, I would say Jamie PR, Jamie or Jamie, is go back to progesterone. There's no need for you to feel terrible. I was thinking test hormones Dutch, not using the cream. Okay, no, actually you don't do that. So when you guys do Dutch, which is the hormone test that I highly recommend, is to do it while you on your protocol, because that will give you an idea, like, where are you with your hormones right now, while you're doing when you're testing, like, this is my status with the hormones. Am I off or not? If you get off hormones for a while and then you test, it's probably going to go show low. And so it just doesn't make any sense. So you always want to do Dutch while you're doing your HRT. So night breath, like, I don't know that. Turning 45 this month, recently had 18 straight days of bleeding and spotting. I also had terrible night sweats all through the same time period. Do you think it could be lack of progesterone or estrogen? Yeah, so it definitely screams estrogen dominance. But you also do want to rule out, go and see your OBGYN to rule out that is nothing, there's nothing malignant in your uterus area, right? So that's really important to rule that out. If that's ruled out, then it's definitely, it can definitely be hormonal. So it's something good to look into. Progesterone could be first starting point, but I would actually also look into estrogen dominance. And how do you support your body for better estrogen metabolism? I've actually written a book about it called Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. So if you don't have that book, for those of you who struggle with estrogen dominance, I would highly suggest go and get the book, because it's not just it's a cookbook with, there's recipes there and meal plans, but there's also a whole protocol for every condition: fibrocystic breast cancer, fibroids, and uterine polyps, and fat around hips and thighs, what to do, and then how to support your liver, how to support your gut health, and all that. So it's a very well laid out book that has all of that information in there. How long using progesterone cream before we notice a difference? For some women, it could be as short as a week, 2 weeks, and then you should start feeling the difference. yeah, about somebody commenting about the chaseberry during the war. How long before we increase dosage if not seeing improvement? I would give it like a full a month before you start going up. Yeah, somebody's saying progesterone cream has been shown to increase bone density in elderly women. For sure. Estrogen too. It's not just progesterone, you guys. It's estrogen as well. No, we do not ship to the UK yet. We only ship to Canada right now. A side effect for me with oral progesterone is making me my greasers larger, and don't love that. Does the cream also have the same side effects? No, so possibly not. You're gonna try it to see, really, to know. And by the way, for those of you guys who want to try out progesterone, if it doesn't work for you, we have a very generous refund policy where you get store credit. We either refund you or we get store credit. So if the product doesn't work for you, we'll just send it back to you. We'll refund you. Sorry, we're not gonna send it back to you. How did you test your hormones? I have symptoms, but the doctor said blood tests are fine. Should I do the Dutch test to double check? Yes, absolutely. The blood tests are completely useless when it comes to steroid hormones. And for estrogen, progesterone, you've got to do it through Dutch. I did 25 milligrams starting on day 6 of my cycle. I'm on day 24 and my cycle hasn't started yet. Fingers crossed that my luteal phase is extended and my period won't come until yeah, that's, one of the things that you just need to accept also as you're going through perimenopause is that there's a lot of craziness involved. There's going to be, it's like you expecting this, I'm going to take this amount of progesterone and then my cycle is going to be going back to full 28 days or whatever it was, right? And, your body has a completely different plan when it comes to perimenopause. I'm working on the new book. It's going to be about perimenopause. And one of the things that there's this amazing chart just shows like, your hormones in menstruating days are like da, 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 like this, right? And okay, every month is like da, 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 okay. In perimenopause, it's like literally it's just madness. And so to expect, because remember that one of the things that's happening is that your body is on the last leg of trying to, like the pituitary gland releases FSH and says, hey, ovaries, produce more, all the hormones, right? And so there is, and the ovaries like, yeah, but we can't. We're just shutting down. We are retiring here, right? But the body's still trying to nudge them. And so there is this, but at times they will produce some of the hormones, and at times they just wouldn't. And so that's part of the reason why there is all these fluctuations of hormones that is happening in perimenopause. So just be prepared for that as well. There is that unpredictability and frustration that can come with that. And so it's nothing to do with, you can try to do progesterone and have your luteal phase in the most perfect way, but your body might have a different plan. So just be ready for that. Courtney is asking, side effects for me, oral progesterone is larger breast. I don't love this. And then also you have to remember that when another thing to consider when you're working with your physician, oral progesterone is on your prescription in the United States, is to make sure you're getting a micronized and bioidentical progesterone. Okay. So just to FYI, because if you're taking like birth control kind of progestin, this is when a lot of the side effects, including larger breasts, are happening. And so I'm wondering, Courtney, whether you're actually doing bioidentical oral progesterone or not. And if you don't know, just call the pharmacy or the compounding pharmacy and find out. What's a Dutch test? The Dutch test is a urine test for hormones specifically. And I will talk about it in a second because we had a really good question that came in from someone asking about saliva testing and how her saliva testing just isn't making any sense and how she feels. What's the name of the book? The name of the book, if you just enter my name, Magdalena Hormones, in Amazon, my books will show up. So it's the 2 books. Overcoming Estrogen Dominance is the book I mentioned just now. And then Cooking for Hormone Balance is my other book that it was my first book. And then Overcoming Estrogen Dominance is the next one. Amber saying, I love your progesterone cream. Thank you. Seems to have really helped my sleep. That's awesome. And, and I'm just, one of the things that I'm doing here on these calls and my videos and all the social media content is like, I'm brutally honest with you guys and just to tell you. So my cream, it worked at the beginning for me to help you sleep. Like Amber is talking about, like it seems to help her sleep, right? Great. And be ready that maybe at some point it's gonna stop working. And I went up the dose to 75 milligrams, and I still wasn't sleeping. And so that's when I had to go to get an oral progesterone. And so sometimes it's just what it is. And like I said, the more deeper you go into closer to menopause and postmenopause, you might need the support of oral progesterone. Where can I get the Dutch test? You can get it done if you go to our links. I believe it's under our Instagram home, those bio links. There is a whole bunch of links there, and that should be a link to where to get it tested. Lauren is asking, can progesterone cause any side effects when taken alone, like estrogen? I've heard this thickens the uterus. Seems like it's safer just to take progesterone. Yeah, so no, you can totally take it alone. And at some point, you might realize that you are actually showing symptoms of low estrogen, and then you need both of them. Just the way many women do. Pam Jefferus is asking, so oral and cream progesterone are two different things. They do two different things. I can take them both, correct? Yes, correct. And many women do. Ember saying, I appreciate your honesty. It's a wild journey we are on. We truly are. Christine is saying, your cream is great. It stopped me from having ovulation headaches and improved my sleep and stopped night sweats. That's awesome. Yeah. Okay, so let's go over to the questions that we received via email. And this one specifically, I want you to just stay on for this one because this is really helpful. So this person is asking, my question regarding progesterone, can it be too high? I did a saliva testing. So check this out. And this is really not about her labs, but it's about form of testing. Which type of lab to use for hormone testing. So this person has done saliva testing, and her results came back. Her estradiol is okay, was high. She's 66, total hysterectomy, and then never used HRT. I have been using bioidentical progesterone cream for about a year. Okay. Recently started using bioidentical estrogen and bioidentical DHEA. Now I'm waking in the middle of the night, having hot flashes again where I wasn't before, and I was just using the progesterone cream. So she added, right? She added, can any one of you guess, like for those of you who are a little bit more familiar with all these concepts, like, can you guess why she's waking up in the middle of the night with hot flashes after she was on progesterone at first, but then she added estrogen and DHEA. And now she's having hot flashes again. And so she's asking, what is wrong? Why is this happening? So while you guys are thinking about this and see whether anybody can get this right, I will explain the difference between saliva and urine testing. And so look, I don't own a lab, so I'm very impartial about this. And I just choose modalities and forms of, labs that are just working well. I mean, it's just as simple as that. And the saliva testing, I think, was an upgrade from blood testing back in the day. I would say like 10, 12, 15 years ago. That was like the, that's next thing. And I feel like saliva testing has really been highly inaccurate now, especially in comparison to urine testing. I've worked with a number of clients and seeing how the saliva is not at all representative of what her actual condition is, what her actual symptoms are. And then when I was seeing that with a lot of patients, with a lot of clients, then I thought I'll just do it for myself as well. So I did a Dutch test one time, and I also did saliva testing at the same time, literally on it was like the same day or the day before, one day difference. And it was astounding. What came back was saliva was screaming everything was high. Like my progesterone was too high, and I was supplementing already with everything. Progesterone was too high. My DHEA, they don't actually measure DHEA, they measure testosterone. My testosterone was like super high. Yet I wasn't showing any symptoms of high testosterone. I wasn't aggressive. I didn't have oily skin. I didn't have facial hair growing here. I didn't have hoarse voice. I wasn't feeling aggressive or angry. Those are all the symptoms of having excessive or excess testosterone. And so over the years, I've just really seen saliva testing, and I see this with so many of my clients, where it just does not represent how they feel. And so for that reason, I highly recommend doing urine testing, and Dutch is, I think, the best lab to do that with, because it just shows you a lot more truth. So let's see whether anybody is able to guess whether is a liver overload. Somebody's Ember is guessing, is a liver overload not processing estrogen out of the body causing her hot flashes? So close, but not blood sugar dysregulation. No, I wouldn't say. I mean, it could be, but not based on what she wrote. So the answer is that when she added additional estrogen and DHEA, you have to know that DHEA, for a lot of women, not all, gets then converted to testosterone, and then testosterone gets converted to estrogens, 3 different estrogens over here. Some women convert it, others don't. Okay, like I don't convert. So mine just stays on a testosterone level, does not go into the estrogen pathway. But for some women, they do. So she's doing now estrogen. She's added estrogen. She's added DHEA on top of it, right? So she's probably overproducing estrogen. She's now not overproducing, but she's got too much estrogen going on. Her progesterone is just not keeping up. It's just the difference is too high. So, you know, when you work with somebody on your hormones, there is as much science as there is art to it, and refinement is needed. And give your provider some grace and slack, because it takes a while to figure things out, you know, to get the right dosage. Everybody responds to the things differently. And so it really takes time to figure it out. It could take as long as 6 months to a year before things stabilize. And in perimenopause is even harder, right? Because you think you got it, and then your body is like, now really, your ovaries are now really shutting down, and the dose just isn't enough. So the symptoms are back. So you're frustrated, right? So then the dosage needs to go up. Once you're in menopause day, and everything after that is postmenopause, right? Once you're in postmenopause, things are just so much easier, because then you're just cruising, and there's just, the estrogen is just low, but it's not crazy all over the place. The progesterone is super low, but at least it's not, you know, going crazy on you, right? And so it's easier then to manage your HRT therapy when you are in postmenopause. By the way, can I just tell you, I am literally like 30 something days away from being in menopause. There's going to be, I think, on the 7th of March. Yeah, so it's actually less than a month. Less than a month, yeah. 3 weeks away. Oh my God, I'm 3 weeks away, you guys, from full menopause. And after that, from the day after that, so the 7th of March onwards, I'm officially in postmenopause. So, and people ask me, like, what are you so excited about? Well, I'm excited about it because, like, the craziness of perimenopause, then it's gonna be over, right? And for me, I can already feel like it's coming to an end, and the like, just the madness of and the unpredictability of things is just not there anymore. But that's when I feel like I'm really in a good place now. I'm equipped to write my next book about perimenopause, because I just want so many other women to not having to go through what I went through. And I wouldn't even call it that bad, because obviously I know how to take care of myself, and I understand hormones more than an average person. So I was navigating it pretty well. But even with that, I felt like, wow, I really got a kick in my butt, you know? So what about a person who is a lawyer, who is an artist, who is a realtor? I don't know, you know, like, who doesn't sit and do hormones all day long? Like, how are you supposed to know all this stuff? How do you take care of yourself? How do you lower the inflammation during that time? How do you eat for perimenopause? So I'm super stoked about the book. All right. So the answer is to that question is that she's basically you've got too much of estrogen going on as compared to progesterone. One thing you can talk to your provider about, first of all, give your provider a chance and talk to him or her. If it was me, without seeing your labs, I would say it might be a good idea to up your progesterone levels. Now, one other thing to consider, because there's 2 types of estrogen dominance. One is the one that I keep talking about, the estrogen to progesterone ratio. They need to be like those even dancing partners. But there's another type of estrogen dominance, got nothing to do with progesterone. It's just about how you metabolize estrogen. And that's another reason why I love the Dutch test, because it shows you the metabolism. It shows you literally a 2, 4, and a 16 hydroxyestrone. That means that how does your body break down those estrogens into those dirty estrogens, somewhat dirty estrogens, and clean estrogens that are actually protective estrogens. And shows you very clearly with nice pie charts and little charts, arrows on how you're doing. And that's another form of estrogen dominance, which is actually quite dangerous in perimenopause, is when you're not breaking down those estrogens in the best way possible. And it's like that river, that flows, and there is a bank in the middle of that river that separates it to a clean stream and a dirty stream. And that's your liver. Your gut plays a huge role there, and your genetics as well. So I inherited genetics for being a very, very, very poor estrogen metabolizer. That explains why there is estrogen dominance and estrogenic cancers on both sides of my family. Most of the women in my family, both sides, have lost the uteruses. There's a lot of breast cancers and such. So, so there is that component. And so helping your body to metabolize estrogen correctly is then the way to go. Can you have both types of estrogen dominance, like you creating too much of that dirty river and having low progesterone at the same time? Sure, absolutely. And most women actually do have. It's just the reason why I talk about it is because, as you can probably know where this is going, your treatment is different. Your protocol is different. If you're low on, if your estrogen dominance is because of low progesterone, then you correct your progesterone with either those herbs that I talked about or bioidentical progesterone. If you're not metabolizing estrogen correctly, which, by the way, this lady could have been well, that was the reason why she's also having hot flashes back again, is because she's now having all that extra estrogen in her body, but she's not metabolizing, she's not breaking it down correctly, producing too many of those dirty estrogens, that dirty water, in the river. And that is causing to flare up, sets into a state of inflammation, and it causes her to have those hot flashes. Okay, so there is that. And I talk about, by the way, all of this in my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance. All right, let's take on the next question. And that is, how would one know what amount or dose of topical progesterone to use if only taking an oral prescription progesterone? Does it affect how much topical to use if I also take oral progesterone? So like I mentioned at the beginning of the call, is oral progesterone works quite differently, and so you're not gonna be doing too much interference. I'm always for starting off with lowest doses. For your oral, you need to talk to your provider. The average is they start off a lot of times on 100 milligrams. However, if you're a sensitive person, then I would say start off as low as 25 milligrams, 50 milligrams, and go up from there. For topical, the starting dose a lot of the time is 25 mils, and then you go up from there. Like I use 75 milligrams for topical. But remember, I'm a high dosage person, okay? 75 for topical, and then 400, believe it or not, I'm on a 400 milligrams of progesterone. 200 doesn't do it for me. 400 is the absolute highest dose, and that's what I need in order to sleep through the night. And, it is what it is. There is a person who is asking whether can you apply your progesterone on your breasts, and the answer is yes. But this person also is asking about estrogen receptor positive cancer. Cancerous lumps was found on my right breast and diagnosed with estrogen receptor positive breast cancer 6.5 years ago. I had leptectomy done, which removed the lump and followed by radiation. I have been on tamoxifen since. I've always had lumpy breasts and definitely low progesterone estrogen dominance. I have bought progesterone cream and very keen to try it to reduce some of the related symptoms. So that's all of that is great. The thing that you have to remember is that when you are having estrogen receptor positive breast cancer, it is those dirty estrogens that I talked about that cause DNA damage and then cause proliferation of the cancer cells. So adding progesterone is just one very small, less important step. The more important step in your case is going to be managing how are you breaking down those estrogens. And so I've written a whole book about it. You can get the ebook version. Since you're in Australia, the shipping there for physical book is pretty expensive. Get maybe the ebook, and then just get educated on how to do that. You can support your liver, you can support your gut health. there is specific supplements that can do all of that. Could I still use progesterone cream if I'm on birth control pills as hormone replacement? No. So you need to talk to your provider about that. You're just going to really confuse your body what's going on, because control pills is progestin is specifically there to thicken your uterus and uterine lining, and for you not to have your progesterone is there to keep your for your lining not to thicken. And then you are introducing bioidentical progesterone, which works completely differently. It's a different molecule. It can be highly confusing for the body. So the best practice is not to use both of them. Okay, please discuss prescription bioidentical progesterone. I mean, it's just really as simple as going to see a doctor. Unless you're in Mexico, like the way I am. I actually started off with oral progesterone last year when I started having sleeping problems. I was in Mexico. If you've been to Mexico, you know that you can walk into a pharmacy and get a lot of prescription stuff over the counter. So I thought, I'm not gonna pay $500 for a visit with my doctor. I can just walk in, try it, and see what happens. And I slept like a log that night. So at first 200 milligrams, I tried, it wasn't working. I did 400, I slept like a log, and I've been on it since then. So there is that. Okay, one more last question. Please discuss. Okay, after starting HRT, including estrogen, I gained a lot of weight on hips and middle. This is so frustrating. So when you're putting on a lot of weight around your hips and the middle, like at the beginning of the call, I was talking about where you distribute or where you store your fat is an indication of the hormonal problems. Weight is just an indication that something is off. And a lot of times we just be like, I want this, green tea, this green tea coffee, this green coffee extract, this and that, whatever, gimmicky stuff to lose that weight. If it's hormonally driven, you really need to address your hormones. And there's a couple of things here. Hips is estrogen dominant. So I don't know the story of this person, right? But I'm just saying, maybe just get my book, Overcoming Estrogen Dominance, and I explain there how to address that estrogen dominance. So at least you can find some relief around the hips and the thighs. The middle section is very much metabolic focused, so metabolically related. So women who experience like prediabetes, diabetes. And we also remember that when you are, when we're talking about diabetes or prediabetes, like Western conventional medicine, like your regular doc will say like, oh, you need to be at the 99. If you're like reaching the 99, then you are in diabetes or prediabetes. In conventional medicine, we look at this and say like, no, like anything above 80 is already highly problematic. You're already in prediabetes. And so like it really should be a discipline, it should be a warning alarm that goes off and says like, time to do something about it. So we're going to be talking more about weight loss and blood sugar sensitivity and stuff like that in the coming weeks. So stay tuned for that. But one of the big things is you've got to upregulate your metabolic health, getting off sugar, maybe doing keto for a while, doing hi bud, there's a chicken walking outside, so he's particularly interested. Looking at your insulin levels, your HA1C, looking at your blood sugar levels, looking at your inflammation. Those are the things that's going to make a difference here, not just HRT itself. Okay. So let's see. A couple of questions here. Borage oil, breast for the breast. That's a great one. Yes, for those of you who are familiar with our Happy Sisters product, there is a borage oil in the cream there as well. It's called Happy Sisters, as in, your breast being your sisters. So let me do maybe one more, one of the last questions. Carrie's saying here, what cycle day do you start progesterone cream? I take one similar to yours, and after 10 months, my cycle started going from 24 days to 11 days, and then next was 15 days. I stopped taking it to see what's going on. I also taking DIM as my estrogen has been dominant in excess. So there's a lot of things in here. 48, perimenopause. There's a lot of things in here, Corey, and I would say really get my book, because DIM is not the answer to everything. DIM is just working on one part of the detoxification pathway. You need two other things, glucosamine glucarate and sulforaphane, to support your full estrogen metabolism. DIM is just being like marketed as that, but it's just actually causes more harm than problems, more problems than good, actually. Yeah, it's hard for me to comment on that, because there's too many things in there. We'll definitely get the estrogen dominance book. Thank you. I'm 100% estrogen dominant. Oh, sorry, that's Corey. Okay, there we go. So that explains. All right, so let me just grab like one more question from Instagram, and then we're gonna start wrapping up. I hope this is helpful, you guys, and you have learned something new today. If you're getting breakthrough bleeding on bioidentical HRT, could it be estrogen not metabolizing properly? Yes, it could be. And you would only know it when you do the Dutch test. That's really helpful. Do you have any tips for motivating for working out in the winter? Over here in Kentucky, doing all the right things, diet C, but I need to exercise more. Yeah, I'll say get a dog. You know, when you have a dog that needs to get you out. I'm serious. Look, if it works for you, right? Like, don't get a dog when you're not set up for it, because that's gonna be hurting the dog and you're gonna hurt yourself. But those are just like, the other thing about exercise, I think you need to find like what is your motivation, right, to do things, and see what works. So, for example, for me, a big thing is to put it on a calendar. Like I have a workout scheduled today at 3 p.m. And I feel like I put on a calendar, I actually get to do it. I don't know why I need to do that, but it seems to work that way. Back in the day, somehow I was a big runner before my hip replacement, and which was like the worst kind of exercise to do. It just worsened my hip so badly. But anyway, I was born with a hip dysplasia, and they also damaged my hips at birth. So that was, so I had it from birth. So it's basically congenital. But I thought running was such a great exercise, and I kind of loved it, but I also didn't love it at the same time. So I had workout buddies to go with. And so it was like, 2-3 times a week, we'll show up at 5:30 in the morning at this park and run. And I would have never have done it by myself, right? So I know people have buddies, like online buddies or friends to exercise with, and doing it together. I mean, those are I think, two big things that comes to mind that can be super helpful. Okay. All right, you guys, it's on top of the hour. I want to be respectful of your time. I hope this was helpful. And if I haven't answered your question, then just email us to support@hormonesbalance.com, and we'll be happy to answer your questions. And going into the weekend, I feel like it's already starting. I wish you a really great weekend, and do something really, really nice and kind to yourself over the weekend. Something that's, because whenever you do, is actually going to help your progesterone production as well, believe it or not. All right. Thanks, everyone. Thank you for being here. Thank you for your questions, and I'll see you next time. Bye for now.